First, we look at the global situation. We look at what's happening in the US, in Europe. We'll look at what the Federal Reserve is doing. We'll also look at global variables like the oil price. And of course, more recently, we've had to look at issues like trade tensions. We put all that together and then we try and see how China fits into that context. And in China, we look at some of the longer run trends in China, like the population growth, but also higher frequency stuff like what's happening with credit or what's happening with investment spending. And then we try and put that together in some kind of holistic view to come to a view on China.
And we have a group of experts that monitor the economic development in China in various sectors such as public finance, the housing market, and imports and exports. And every few months, we also visit China to do a checkup. We will talk to the government officials, the private sector, academia, to find out what they think about the economic outlook. When it's time for us to update our projections, we'll gather all this information and apply our judgment on the government's policies and the global environment to figure out the most likely scenario for the Chinese economy for the years to come.
Rebalancing is actually quite a vague concept. Maybe the easiest way to explain it is through a metaphor of becoming a middle-aged person after being a teenager. You've got to change your lifestyle a bit to make it more sustainable, exercise a bit more, change your diet a bit. And for China, it's really about moving from high-speed growth, where the economy is growing very fast, to more focusing on high-quality growth.
So the question is, what does this high-quality growth look like? We see three priorities. The first is to make sure that the economy relies more on consumption and to wean it away from excessive reliance on credit and investment. The way that the government can achieve this is by spending more on education, health, social transfers to ensure that people have more money left over to buy other things.
The second would be more opening up. I mean, China's done a lot of opening up in the last 40 years or so, and it's benefited China and the whole world economy very much. But there's still more that China can benefit from opening up more to the rest of the world through trade, through investment, and through technology.
The third priority is to control pollution decisively. One way to do this is to institute a carbon tax. Doing so will ensure that there are blue skies over China all year round.
Look, the impact of the trade tensions on the Chinese economy is negative, manageable but negative. With trade wars, there are no winners, there are costs, and China will have some consequences as a result. And indeed, that's why we at the IMF are calling on all parties involved in this trade dispute to talk and try and find a negotiated resolution, and if necessary, use the trade dispute mechanisms that already exist, like the World Trade Organization. China needs to increase the role of market forces because market forces are the best way that the human species have found to make us more prosperous, to make us better off. For China in particular, what does this mean? This means allowing the private sector a bigger role, to maybe reduce the role of state-owned enterprises, or at least allow the private sector to compete on a level playing field in many more sectors than is currently the case. We all know that governments are going to play an important role in all countries. They have to provide security, they can provide roads, but they're not very good at doing iPhones or apps. So that's why an innovative, growing China really needs a bigger role for the private sector and for market forces.
Well, we think digitalization has the potential to become a long-run growth engine for China. Anyone who's been to China in the last few years will be amazed by these so-called 4 new great innovations, including e-commerce and mobile payment. The large internet companies in China have developed these super apps that would allow people to do all kinds of things on a single platform, which is good for productivity. They've also branched beyond this niche to other areas of the financial supply chain, building this integrated ecosystem of financial services that links customers and businesses.
We think digitalization has already unleashed economic growth in China in terms of higher efficiency, convenience, and productivity. In fact, the analysis in our report shows that a 1 percentage point increase in digitalization increases economic growth by 0.3 percentage points. Of course, there are risks. These include, with automation, there could be job losses. There are also risks, financial risks that emerge from fintech. It's important that the government guard against these risks. The world is looking at China because China is a leader in e-commerce and fintech, and the world is looking at China in terms of the benefits, but also how it manages the risks.